What's going on, people? Welcome to Brandon's Book Club. So, the book that we're going to discuss today is The E-Myth Revisited. It's a book by Michael Gerber. It's one of the first books that I read, actually one of the most impactful books that I listened to that really talks about business in a holistic perspective. Now, before we go any further, let this conversation be gracious and kind. And as always, take what you need and leave what you don't. So, just for anyone who's already interested, or if you haven't read the book yet, it takes a conversational / anecdotal style. They use the power of stories to convey the ideas and the principles that he talks about in this book. The first thing they talk about is your business needs you to be the technician. So if you're baking pies, the technician is the actual baker. If your business is academics, or if it's writing papers, then you are the actual tutor. The technician or the engineer in the business is the person that's actually providing the service, creating the product, providing the information. That's one level of your business. The next level, or another aspect of the business, is the manager. The manager is the organizer and the administrator. They're doing the paperwork. They're handling the billings. They're doing the fundraising. They're organizing payroll. All of these little things that come together that really make the business function and operate. Imagine the people that are in the back office that are making sure that the technicians have what they need to produce the product. The person that's a manager is organizing and administrating and handling the background, doing the work in the background. And then, of course, you have the entrepreneur. Now, entrepreneur is a term that's been thrown around a lot lately, but according to Michael Gerber in the E-Myth, hence the E in myth, is the entrepreneur is the visionary and the innovator. All three of these roles are pertinent to a successful business, or are valuable to the business. But here's the caveat. The technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur can all be you, the person that is running the business owner. But they're not supposed to be you all at the same time. So as you're looking at the roles and the aspects of the business, you yourself might be the technician. You yourself might be the manager. You yourself might be the visionary, the innovator, the entrepreneur. But your business also needs dedicated technicians. They need dedicated workers and engineers and producers. They need someone dedicated to the role of managing the business, organizing and doing the administration and the paperwork, as well as someone who is primarily focused on or functioning as the person that's driving the vision, setting the goals, and defining what course of action needs to be taken. All of these aspects will likely be you, the individual, the entrepreneur, but they shouldn't be you all at the same time. Outside of that, the three stages of a business include infancy, adolescence, and maturity. Starting with infancy, this goes hand in hand with the technician role. Everything is being done by one person. The technician is the person that's handling everything. They're doing the paperwork, putting out the orders, they're taking the calls, doing the sales. I guess the way that I would put it is infancy is when you're at your starting point. You're at the ground level when it's all on you. As your business grows, as you develop more capital, as you get more clientele, then it talks about moving into the adolescence phase. The onset of the adolescence phase is when you, according to Michael Gerber, is when you are hiring your first employee, and in hiring your first employee, you then get promoted to being a manager. Gerber really tries to emphasize that once you're the manager, once you've hired a technician, then you as the manager shouldn't be doing the engineering work. Your primary role or your primary function should be making sure that the business is organized and administration is being taken care of and the paperwork is in line and in order. even though it may start with your first hire, it can last for as long until you get to the point where you enter phase 3, maturity. Maturity is basically the point when it no longer requires you to be the central focus point handling and managing all aspects of the business. Typically, this is when you're getting to the franchise stage. Not necessarily that you're franchising your business, but franchise in the sense of there's a system in place and there's an order of operations, and the business can run, function, and operate absent of you, the person who started, the entrepreneur. Okay? And that is pretty much the gist of what the business and the business owner do. Two things that he talks about after he discusses the business stages and the business roles. There are two primary reasons why businesses fail and two primary reasons or recommendations that allow business to succeed. So we'll start with success. Things that really help a business succeed is that it should be a series of interdependent systems. So interdependent systems, or the word interdependent, relates to two or more things basically dependent on each other. The business, each step along the way supports the next step. Each phase is connected, and is everything in and around the business is supporting another aspect of the business. Hopefully that makes sense. At least that's my takeaway. If you agree, open it to making it a dialogue. Now, with that being said, why businesses fail? They lack consistency, or they lack scalability. What is consistency? It's kind of all over the place. It doesn't have a streamlined message. It doesn't have a central focus. It doesn't have a certain, I guess the buzzword nowadays is like brand identity, if you will. The consistency that he's talking about related to scalability is constant growth, constant evolution, forward momentum. Doesn't mean that you won't have setbacks. Doesn't mean that you won't have some challenges or obstacles or hurdles to overcome. But generally, if you take a look back, if you step back and look at it, the trend line is going forward. It's going up. It's growing. There's growth happening, as opposed to a business that either sputters or starts to decline over an extended period of time, or is not growing to a point where, it can manage and maintain itself. So I guess this is more so about businesses. Well, no, not necessarily true, because I guess nonprofits can continue to grow in clients, continue to grow in service providing, continue to grow in funding received. So the second reason why business fails, the entrepreneur basically creates a job where they have no boss, as opposed to a business that they can have freedom. And that kind of ties the whole theme together with the E is entrepreneurship, and the myth of what entrepreneurship is that it's not you creating a job so you have no boss, or doing something so that you don't have no one to answer to. Rather, entrepreneurship, from the perspective of Michael Gerber, is really creating a business where you, the individual, are establishing freedom for yourself. The freedom of time, the freedom of decision making, the freedom to do, live, and function in a way that is best suited for you, and not becoming a slave to the business that you're creating. Stage one, yes, you're creating a job because you're doing all the work, but the objective or the progression is you go from doing all the work to organizing the work to just setting the course and steering the ship. The business grows from you having to do all the work to you being able to hire other people to work with you, to eventually you are no longer needed every day in the day-to-day of the business for it to survive. And structurally, it follows the same principles. There's a prototype, it can replicate it, and it creates a system so that it can move forward. Now let's get down to it. What I believe is the overarching theme of the business is in this line. This is the line that really spoke volumes about the book. Quote, "Your business is your dojo." Karate Kid, your dojo. The dojo is a place where you work out, where you exercise, where you practice, where you're building up yourself. He's saying you have to work on you, the individual, to change the world. as opposed to trying to change the world to fit you, the individual, and not confusing being an entrepreneur with starting a business. The idea is not having a boss and not becoming a slave to the business that you're creating. These were my takeaways from the book, but if you have more advice or if you think I missed anything, feel free to send some information and add your updates.